Oh, how the tables have turned in the last week in Calgary.
You're Locked On Flames, your daily podcast on the Calgary Flames. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of Locked On Flames. As always, I'm your host, Jess Belmosto, and thank you so much for joining me. Today's episode is brought to you by Sleeper. Download the Sleeper app and use promo code LOCKEDONNHL to get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. And I'm joined by my partner in crime, Nick Zararis. Nick, how you doing?
I'm just tired like everybody else, but it's Wednesday. We're getting there.
Yeah. I mean, I think that the vibe is a little bit better for the most part than where we were last week.
Definitely. That was a good win. Genuine. There's no caveats. There's no buts. Ifs. That's a good win. You're down multiple goals in a game, down early in that game, and you found a way to come back. That's a good win. That's something that lifts everybody's spirits, whether you're on the team or just watching the game.
Definitely. Would you say that this has been 3 good games in a row from them, even though they did lose against Dallas?
Yes, I would definitely agree with that assessment. Dallas is Dallas is one of the best teams in the league. They're very good. You play them to, I won't say a push, but close to a push. Okay, that's a good start. Even if you didn't win, you took something from that. You took your Thursday and Friday off. Then you went out there and you took care of business Saturday. You took another couple days. You didn't get too high, and that's going to be something to gauge kind of how good the Flames actually can be. Are they going to be a team that when things are going too well, they just no-show a game because they feel too confident?
Yeah.
Or are they a team which gets too low and one death spiral ends the season? And I'm inclined to say no on the latter half about getting too low, because there's a world where it already could have happened, in all honesty.
Right. Yeah, no, I'm hoping that that ship has sailed, and I feel like if things were going to be that bad, it would have just continued from 6 losses to 7 to 8 to 29, however many we get to it. I mean, it's good to see them playing good hockey that we know that they are capable of playing and actually being able to score.
No, absolutely. And that's why I think the death spiral concept it sounded good. Oh, what's wrong with the Flames? But they didn't play terrible in all 6 of those games. And they're too talented where if they want to put an effort, they're going to hang around in a lot of these games. And that's really, you can tell if and when a team is giving you all of their effort. The Sharks, for instance, the last couple of weeks, up until they beat the Flyers last night, they were not giving you a ton of effort in the games they conceded 10 goals against. The Flames, even in the games they've lost, have been in most of their games. Sure, you would like them to clean up the sloppy stuff, because that's infuriating. Because, well, I play men's league and I played hockey. How are they that bad? How are they making that mistake? And I understand that line of thinking. There is a world where that type of thought is reasonable. But to compare playing men's league or playing hockey growing up to the NHL is like comparing driving to the gas station to being a professional race car driver. Yes, they both involve cars, but that's about the extent of their similarities. They are making these mistakes. You have to trust that they identify that they are making mistakes. The coaching staff points them out, and they will be corrected. That's all you can do in the sports world from the outside looking in. Hope everything is being looked at, addressed, and if something continues to not be addressed, then you start to complain. You start to point it out until it gets corrected.
And I think that they've done just that. I mean, sure, there have been bad giveaways and, sloppy turnovers, but it hasn't been to the point where it's every time the puck is on their stick, which, I mean, it can't get much worse from there. You can only go up. So, I mean, I do think that they have seen an improvement in their game and they are tightening it up. And that's really all we've been asking for.
And the positive repercussion of this is if they continue to win, that will build some confidence. And we've been talking a lot about how this is a fragile group coming off of last year where things went terribly wrong. There were definitely a few moments where guys had to have been thinking to themselves, oh no, not again. And I know it's only been, a month into the season, barely. That's a real possibility that lingers on you the whole year. Oh no, not again. What are we going to do? But they've shown you something. They played a really good game against Nashville last night. And I know a lot of people will point out, well, how are they behind? They outshot Nashville the whole way. You got to remember when a team goes up 2-3 goals, they really don't push a lot offensively. They are content to play defense. They are content to drop guys back and invite you to shoot from crappy areas. There's a reason teams come back from 3 and 4 goal deficits in the NHL. It's because the other team stops trying to score. They don't put a ton of effort into scoring, and it's about making the game as slow and uneventful as possible, which is where teams are able to find ways to come back. So yeah, they did outshoot Nashville the entire game, but they deserve credit because they are not the type of team that has the firepower to come back from multiple goal deficits. In all honesty, they don't have one guy who's going to skate through the neutral zone, will control the puck, set up a play, convert a goal, and go right back at it. Or if they get a power play, they don't have a guy who's going to dance making plays through the center of the ice and beat the goalie one-on-one. They really have to work hard for their offense.
And that just speaks to their, their talent and, kind of their resiliency, because I mean, this team very well easily could have just rolled over and died. They
100%. I wrote that down.
Yeah, what's the point? We're already playing from behind. We know how this story goes. Like, whatever, it's just one more loss. But they didn't. And sure, it's kind of giving them credit for doing the bare minimum, but
baby steps.
Right. You have to crawl before you can walk. And I believe it was Blake Coleman last night in the post-game interview. He said, we're finding that confidence again. And that is such a huge first step.
Oh, absolutely. And it's hard to play well when you're not feeling good about your game. You hope that the wins start to trickle down and have that effect on everybody. That includes Huberdeau, who we're going to talk about in a minute. Just even if you yourself are not playing particularly well, if the results are good for the team, you won't feel as much pressure to get right away. And that gives you an opportunity to work through whatever's not working for you in your game.
Yes, absolutely. And we are going to talk all about Jonathan Huberdeau and his experience being stapled to the bench last night during the third period, right after a quick word from our friends at eBay Motors. eBay Motors is the place to go when you need all your auto parts. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you will always find exactly what you are looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber and not cash. With all the parts you need at prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available for U.S. customers. A new NHL season brings all sorts of possibilities. Jonathan Huberdeau could score 50 goals. The Calgary Flames could hoist the Stanley Cup, and you could win big by playing daily fantasy hockey on Sleeper, the official daily fantasy sports app of the Locked On NHL Network. Sleeper is our number one choice for daily fantasy sports, and especially daily fantasy hockey, because with Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash in daily fantasy hockey contests. All you have to do is pick whether studs like McDavid, Draisaitl, Ovechkin, Crosby, or McKinnon will record more or less than their sleeper projections for things like goals, assists, saves, plus minus, and more in a given game. To win 100 times to win a 100 times bet on Sleeper, you need to correctly predict the outcome of 8 player stats. You heard me, Flames fans. You can win 100 times your money playing daily fantasy hockey with Sleeper. Use promo code LOCKEDONNHL and you will get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's code LOCKEDONNHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details and locational availability. Thank you, everyone, for sticking around and hanging out with us on today's episode of Locked On Flames. Make sure you're subscribed to the show wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube as well. That was depressing last night. Watching a grown man with his head in his hands like that.
Everybody's been sent to timeout at one point or another in their life.
Yeah.
Everybody has been sent to timeout and reflect on what they've done. The Flames have tried everything possible to find something to get Huberdeau going.
Mm-hmm.
They played him with every other forward on the team at various points last year. We all remember him playing with Kadri and Lucic and with Lindholm and with Mangiapane and with Coleman. They have done everything feasible to do anything from a hockey sense to get him going. And this is not an untalented hockey player. I know there's a lot of conjecture about, well, he played with this person in Florida. Florida did this to get the most out of him. Just regardless of that, and I do want to talk about that separately in a minute, but just purely talent-wise, the IQ, the hands, that alone, that does not go away. Sure, he might not have the confidence in his game to always make the right play the way he would if he was feeling better about his game, but the hockey skills are still there. This is not an untalented player.
Yeah, absolutely. And I keep saying or seeing people say that, oh, you know, like where did all that talent go? How did this happen? Well, he said it last year. You don't forget how to learn, or you don't forget how to play hockey after 6 months. You certainly don't forget after 18 months either. It just doesn't go away. And we're as frustrated as we are. You can only imagine that it's like 10 times, if not more, frustrating for him.
That's why I felt really good about them winning that game last night, because if they would have lost, that would have been the story. And granted, this is still the biggest story coming away from last night's game. But at the very least, they won. He can take a deep breath, worry about the next game, and doing whatever it takes to find his game. Because the key components of his game are his hands, his IQ. His skating is not incredible. His shot is not incredible. He is a facilitator. He is a playmaker. He makes the people around him better. Part of the issue and why he isn't as good, he's not putting up as many counting stats as he did in Florida, is they don't have somebody like a Sasha Barkov for him to run with. And that's not a disrespect to anybody on the Flames. Barkov's one of the 20, 25 best players in the entire league. The Flames don't have anybody in that tier of player. And when you're a playmaker and the other team knows you're not going to shoot, that's going to make their job easier, because in the back of their mind, they're going to be playing the pass the entire time. And there's more stuff. I reread what Jack Hahn wrote the day the Flames traded for him. I watched his video breakdown. There's just a lot of little things that I think are worth talking about, but at the very least, they won. That's my takeaway. I know that's the spin zone, the person who has to do the show, but at the very least, I feel good about the fact that they won. And even if he is beating himself up over the fact that he got benched the last 10 minutes of the game, he's not the first star player to get benched. He won't be the last. Same thing happened to Gaudreau in Columbus last week.
Exactly. That's what I was just going to say. I mean, Gaudreau is easily the best player on Columbus, I would say. And for him to be benched and his coach to basically go out and say, yeah, you know, we wanted to roll with our better guys, and Huska to do the same thing. We know that hockey is a copycat sport, but I didn't think we would ever see something like this in Calgary, especially with Huberdeau. But I don't know. I'm inclined to believe that he's going to turn a corner eventually, and we're getting there.
He has to find what his new role is. That's been the biggest issue, is the way the Flames play hockey is not conducive to what Huberdeau likes to do. The Flames are a dump and chase, grind, hard work, win the game with your with your positioning, your physicality. Huberdeau is not a physical player. He's not a good forechecker. He is a playmaker. He is a facilitator. So if your team is consistently dumping the puck into the zone, that means you're not playmaking. That means you have to go and get the puck. If you're not a good forechecker, you're going to have a hard time getting the puck back. And those little things, those little components of the game, they don't seem that important for your best players. Nobody complains about Connor McDavid on the forecheck. Nobody complains about Austin Matthews on the forecheck. That's because they're able to do other things to make up for the lack of their ability to forecheck. They have great skating. They have great shots. Huberdeau doesn't have those. He needs to find what his role in this type of team is. He's never going to flirt with 100 points again as long as he lives. It's not doable. It's not the type of environment the Flames are in. The year he put up 110 points, the Panthers pretty much broke all of the statistical models, all the underlying numbers, because they were creating chances at the highest rate ever because all of their games were track meets. They would go up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. And in Florida, Barkov would do a lot of the legwork of skating the puck through the neutral zone, getting into the offensive zone. Because the defense has to respect Barkov, they're giving Huberdeau a reasonable amount of space to create plays. And it's a really different environment. And this is something we talk about a lot in other sports, but I do think it rings true in hockey as well. You can be a really talented player, but if you get dropped into an entirely different environment that doesn't account for what made you successful, it's not going to be reasonable to have the same expectations. I didn't think Huberdeau was going to be 190. I thought he'd be a 70-point guy on a Flames team that was defense first. That is a reasonable goal. For somebody who makes $10.5 million a year, you should be putting up 65 plus points a season and not be a liability defensively. Will he get there? It's a matter of if they can find a way to get him over whatever it is, because there are parts of his game that are worth pointing out, that he's doing this, he's doing that, where just sometimes he'll receive a pass and he receives a pass with his hands in a bad position where he has to pass. He's not a threat to skate. He's not a threat to use his body. He only passes, and that takes away a dimension. It allows the defense to just play the pass. And there's more little things like that, but the biggest thing is he can't get frustrated because it's such a long season that even if he is frustrated, if you spend the next 5 months, I'm terrible, I'm moping, whatever, that will have a trickle-down effect on the rest of the team. I know a lot of people are starting to get tired of him saying, well, I need to be better. I expect better from myself. But what would you like him to say?
Right. What else is he supposed to say? I mean, I don't think that's all he's saying. I think that's what he's saying to the media because, there's a right and wrong answer when you're addressing the media, and everything you say is going to be picked apart regardless. Like, I don't know. There's body language experts in the NHL hockey Twitter community too, apparently. And, I really do think that I'm sure that there is a sports psychologist. There was one when David Riddick was there. I'm sure they all talk and work with some sort of, mental health coach in some capacity so they don't go spiraling, because it is very easy think about in your everyday life. When things start to go wrong at your job, at home, whatever the case may be, it is very easy to start catastrophizing. I mean, it's a little bit easier, a little bit nicer when you're making $10.5 million. You don't have to worry about that. But there's still issues there. And to be able to, kind of have this, I guess, like a blocker and to stop it, to help, boost you back up. I don't know. I feel like we may see something there. It'd probably help.
Any little signs of life. That's all I need. And this is what I talk about a lot in regards to young players, guys who are trying to establish themselves, prove themselves. I don't really care about the points as much as other people. I know a lot of people will do the points don't matter back, the straw man argument. That's not what I'm saying. In evaluating a player, there is so much that goes into so much more that goes into my opinion of a player than just the counting stats, because the counting stats only tell you one thing. What I look for in a guy, especially one who's struggling, might be having confidence issues. How many times a game are they touching the puck? Are they in these scrums? Even if they're losing the scrums for loose pucks, are they in them? Are they making the other team work harder? Are they moving the puck when they have it, or are they skating with it? Those little details. Those are a better descriptor of how a guy's playing than saying, oh, he has 2 points in his last 9. That doesn't tell me a whole lot. That tells me he assisted 2 goals or he scored a goal and set up one or whatever. There's so much more that goes into the game than the box score. And it's why, even though Kadri hadn't gotten on the score sheet in a while until last night, he was playing noticeably well. In Saturday night game against Seattle, he was really good in the game against Seattle, where even though he didn't find the net, he was noticeable. He was making an impact. So if Huberdeau is going to start building himself back up, that might mean taking a slice of humble pie and just forechecking aggressively, engaging on puck battles, and just being in the mix a little bit more.
He just needs his little buddy, Jacob Pelletier, back. That would solve all of the problems. It wouldn't, but it's okay. We can just live in delusion. Coming up next, we are going to wrap up the show talking about the Flames' younger players and the success that they've seen so far with, deciding to call these younger guys up. But before we do that, we're going to take a quick break here and talk to you about FanDuel. Score early this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. That's $150 if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there is no better time to get in on the action. The app is super easy to use, and there's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. And it's super easy, user-friendly, especially you can get paid instantly, which is my favorite part. And you can get in on the action as well. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, the official partner of the NFL. Thanks, everyone, for tuning into today's episode of Locked On Flames. And make sure you're following us on Twitter at Nick Zararis and at Jess Belmosto. I'm thoroughly impressed from what we're seeing, or what we have seen, from Connor Zary and Nick DeSimone and Martin Pospisil. What are your takeaways?
I'm just happy they're giving guys opportunities. That's always been my opinion when it comes to managing the bottom half of your lineup. Why would you rather play a guy you know is bad than a guy who might be bad? I would rather take the upside gamble than say, well, we just want low event hockey. When these guys are on the ice, we don't want anything to happen. That's fine. You can't do that an entire season. If you have injuries and you need to fill a gap for a week, 2 weeks, and you want to play the 13th forward who's a 28-year-old AHL lifer, okay, I understand that for 2 weeks. But long term, you can get 2 things out of this. One, you get to find out if the guy is an NHL player or not. And number 2, more often than not, they're not going to be particularly expensive. That's the other benefit of these young guys coming in and trickling in. It gives you a little more flexibility. And I know the Flames are up against the cap ceiling, but in an ideal world, they're going to get their books in a little more order. Some of these expiring guys won't be back next year. And more likely than not, even if the Flames do make the playoffs this year, you're probably a first, maybe a second round exit. You need to figure out long term, okay, if we're going to keep bolstering with this expensive core, that means we need to trickle in cheap people, whether that's reclamation projects, guys like Sonny Milano, or that's young guys like Zary, Pospisil, etc. You need to find ways to give guys opportunities and it's just, frankly, and this is going to sound funny coming from me, the numbers, these stats guys, but I can at least project onto these young guys that, hey, I don't know what they are. Maybe they can be something. I know what Milan Lucic, Trevor Lewis, it's at this point in their careers are. There's no meat left on the bone to chew. There's nothing left to keep me going. At least playing these young guys, there's the possibility, hey, he gets on a good run here. Maybe he sticks. Maybe they have to reconfigure the lineup and he gives them a good problem to have, that he's so good you can't take him out. And that makes the rest of your lineup better, because if he's forcing his way in, that's taking someone out and you're sliding other guys around, and it's going to make your lineup deeper. Yeah, it's refreshing that they're giving young guys opportunities, especially because that's been the antithesis of what they've done in the recent past.
Yeah, and I mean, I wonder if Matthew Phillips leaving in free agency kind of, again, forced their hand to change things around because, I mean, obviously, like, they didn't have enough players to fill out the roster, but to be giving these younger guys kind of extended looks this early in the season, I don't know if I've ever seen the Flames do this in the 4 seasons I've covered this team.
Frankly, it's just not something NHL teams like to do. There is a philosophical mind block of young guys don't play in the bottom six. Young guys are top six only because they need as much ice time. They need power play. They need stuff to facilitate their ability to stay up. When you play a guy in the bottom six, especially if they don't kill penalties, they're only going to get 11, 12 minutes a game. And if you are young and developing, that's not a sufficient amount of ice time to play, which is part of why they opt for it. The low events, whatever happens when they're out there, guy, will take it. Just don't concede. Even if you don't score, as long as you don't concede, that's fine. I would rather play the upside. It's good to see these guys getting opportunities. Zari's been noticeable. He's had flashes. He's somebody with lively legs, which on a slow team it's encouraging. It's noticeable that they've got somebody who can kind of buzz around the net front, get down low, win some puck battles, get in on the forecheck. The little details matter. And if he keeps playing well in particular, I think he's got a good chance of sticking. Pospisil, I know, is only really up because of injuries and this Mangiapane suspension, but at the very least, I feel like Zari has earned himself a decent extended look. Like, at least till he has a bad game, I think he should stay in the lineup.
Yeah, and I mean, it's important to remember that bad games are going to happen. I mean,
Of course.
we see them happening with star players, and I mean, obviously, no one's immune to it. So, you're bound to hit that wall at some point, and that's okay because there's tomorrow and there's other opportunities for you, whether that is, with the NHL club or back with the Wranglers, and that's the beauty of development.
I'll steal a word. I'll steal a word from the MLMs on Instagram. Growth mindset. Okay, we need a growth mindset here, Calgary. We can't grow with 35-year-olds. We can grow with guys in their early 20s. We need a growth mindset. It's let these young guys figure it out. Either they're bad or they're NHL players. If they're NHL players, that's a good problem to have. If they're bad, then you can go and get the 34-year-old who's been in the AHL.
Yeah. And I mean, that I think that does it for us today on Locked On Flames. And thank you all for hanging out with us for the first month of the season. I hope that you are enjoying the show. Make sure you're subscribed wherever you get your podcasts and, of course, on YouTube as well. You can follow us on Twitter or X, whatever you're calling it, at Jess Belmosto and at Nick Zararis. Our handles are on the screen. And Nick, do you have any parting words for us?
I'm very excited to eat dinner. I'm very hungry.